I've been thinking a lot about the boss-assistant dynamic because I've worked in both of those roles, and I think it's really interesting, that partnership, because especially from the boss's point of view, you have this person working for you and they know everything about your life and you don't necessarily know that much about them. So I thought that that might be fun as the central relationship. And then I'd also been thinking that something about knowing a secret about your friend and what you do with that information, whether or not you should always tell them, which some people would advocate you should always tell your friend if you found out, you know, their partner was cheating on them, for example. And I actually thought that's really interesting because it's not that black and white, it's not that simple. They are all fictional, but they're not all entirely fictional, because I think everyone probably draws from people they know or people they meet and amalgamates them to make their characters. I think you need to have a really clear voice in your head, and sometimes it helps that you've got someone you know in the back of your mind when you're doing it. And I do sometimes use, for tiny characters, I do sometimes use people I've met or worked with that haven't necessarily been that nice to me, and I put them in a tiny part and don't make them very nice, and that gives me a horrible, nasty pleasure. The only one that I can think of is when I worked, I had a student job in a factory cutting up photographic negatives. And my job was to cut them into strips before they were sent back to people with their photographs in case they wanted to get copies of them. And I just couldn't master the machine, and so I was slicing through pictures of people's weddings and everything. There'd be the bride on one side and the groom on the other side, and I'd have cut right down the middle. But I kind of managed to get away with it because they all got sent back, and by the time, I imagine, someone must have complained, but by the time they did, I'd finished anyway and gone back to college, so it was all right. Be more confident in yourself. Don't be so worried about what other people think of you and whether you're doing the right thing. I think it's really important to remember no one really cares about... Everyone's really worried about what they're doing. They're not worrying about what you're doing. If you just keep your head down and do your job, you'll be fine. No, I think workplace friendships are really important. A lot of my really good friends are people that I used to work with, and I think when you're working you need that kind of support around you. I think it only becomes difficult when it is something like a boss and an assistant. If you're too matey and you're the boss, and then it becomes, you know, it's then difficult to discipline them or tell them off if they get something wrong. So I think you have to be a bit more wary in those situations. But no, I think they're invaluable. I started writing, I can't even remember writing a story for the first time, because I did it, as soon as I could write, I would write stories. And I used to write, my parents had a newsagent shop with a paperback stand in it, and I would write little novels and try and persuade my dad to put them on the stand and sell them, which he would never do. And it was always what I wanted to do. In my dream world, it was what I wanted to do for a career, but I didn't really think it was achievable. I thought you had to be a certain type of person or have had a certain type of education, I don't know. I just thought it wouldn't happen to me, so I went into TV as a way to sort of try to fulfil that side of me. You know, I worked with writers and I worked with scripts and I wrote some things, and I thought that would take place of wanting to be a novelist, but it didn't. I still kept that ambition until I actually was brave enough to show someone something that I'd written. I am in that 3-month thinking phase that I always need before I actually start writing again, which basically involves me wandering around North London, staring off into space, and sitting in cafes trying to listen to people's conversations. And I spend a lot of time just thinking it through and thinking it through and thinking it through and throwing out a lot of ideas. So by the time I come to start actually writing, I've got a really solid idea in my head of what I want to write.